It's not 5 o'clock, and they don't care. Welcome to Wine to 5. Entertainment, education, and everyday drinking for everyday people. Your hosts are Valerie Caruso and Stephanie Davis, two wine educators who don't need a clock to know when to pour that next glass.
We're back.
Yes, we are. Hello, Wine to Fivers. Steph is back up in the FOCO, and I'm settled down in the Colorado Springs area, and we just got back from wine camp. And guess what? We're here to tell you all about it. It's kind of our annual tradition, so while we're still basking in the afterglow, you get to hear all about what we saw, what we learned, who we saw, the whole thing.
Yeah, and come to think of it, we saw and met so many of you there, and we hope you'll enjoy this little revisit. But before we get into all of the conference highlights, factoids, and shout-outs, are you in the mood for wine, Val?
Does a one-legged duck swim in circles, Steph? I mean, come on, right? Yeah.
I know.
Yeah, well, let's get into it. Well, let's start with you, what you're sipping on this very fine late summer sunny Colorado afternoon.
I'm having the 2015 Domaine du Penlois La Croisée Juliana, and this one is 100% Gamay, as you may already know from the Most Northern Cru in Beaujolais. And if you still don't know what we're talking about, that's Juliana. And we did a whole episode on that, so you can go back and check that out. And this cru was named after Julius Caesar. The wine is vibrant and energetic with crunchy red fruits and some kind of tickling on my nose. It's kind of like spices or maybe a little bit of earthiness and some super soft tannins. I'm enjoying the heck out of it. This is why I love wine. It came specifically from Weekly Tasting, which is our sponsor, and it was selected by Jennifer Simonetti Bryan and strategically paired with a herb marinated pork loin recipe. However, I'm not doing that. I'm sort of rogue, going with my shrimp. What are these poblano peppers from my garden?
Yum.
Shrimp in a pasta sauce with like a little bit of like creamy. Yeah, it'll be good.
Girl, why aren't we neighbors?
I know. What are you drinking?
It's funny because when you were describing your wine, vibrant, energetic, that is exactly how you could describe what I'm drinking. It is a 2017 Rivoli Mariella Vinho Rosé from the Peninsula do Setúbal, which is a regional wine, a Vinho Regional. It's from Portugal. And it is a rosé. It is so pretty, and it is so vibrant. It is energetic, and it's got more of the summer fruits, which I'm loving right now. So maybe some really ripe strawberries, some watermelon, those kind of things. Maybe some bright red, juicy plums, really ripe and just juice dripping down your arm, that whole thing. The grapes, I was going to say, after that interview with Sandra from Mexico, when she described the Portuguese who don't want you to know what grapes are in their wine because they don't care, I started to say, well, you don't need to know what grapes are in this because nobody cares. Well, I did just do a quick look, and it is Syrah and Aragonese, which some of you might remember is Tempranillo. So beautiful rosé made with red grapes, and not to be confused with the Setúbal DOC, which is like the sweet fortified muscat wines. This is a regional, so from the region of Peninsula de Setúbal. It is a super late summer rosé that I'm just digging the kick out of.
Let me see the color on that.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. And the bottle is stunning.
Oh, yeah, that's nice. That's nice.
Bottle has a mermaid on it, and it is a beautiful, beautiful label. And
a mermaid.
Yeah.
That's cool.
It's really a nice wine, and I just had it with a salad for lunch that I tossed in with a lot of Italian olive salad. You know, the kind of olive salad you put on what are those sandwiches called in New Orleans?
Oh, muffaletta.
Muffaletta, yeah. Like that kind of olive salad that kind of grew up with, and I kind of tossed that in there and did like a feta cream dressing, and it was so good.
Nice.
Yeah, you can tell we're just finishing lunch and recording in the middle of the afternoon. So yes, that's what we had for lunch, but I think you guys want us to move on.
Yeah, let's get started on our wine camp highlights.
Let's do it. So should I start, Steph?
Yeah, I think just take it away. I mean, we did some sessions together, so we share some of our favorites, but then we did some things separate. So like we do every year, which is good because we divide and conquer.
I was just going to say that, yeah, we divide and conquer. One of the things that I did that I just kind of went in there with oh my gosh, it's early in the morning, I don't know, and I just kind of rolled out to the tent, and they had a presentation by Wente. I think her name was Chris, but I can't remember off the top of my head. But when I walked in, there were 4 glasses of Chardonnay in front of me. And what was interesting about this, I thought, well, first, breakfast wine, yay. But second of all, what they did with this seminar were they went through the different stages of winemaking decisions. So if you've done any kind of wine studies, chances are you've had to do a flow chart of different decisions that winemakers have for white, red, or rosé wines, because there are many that determine the resulting style of the wine. In this case, they talked about Brix levels, the ripeness levels in the vineyards with the grapes, and what each level of the Chardonnay grape from 20, 21 degrees Brix all the way up through 26, what that represents in terms of fruit. The kind of barrels they use, how long it sits in the barrels, whether they're using American oak or French oak, even the toast, a toasted head versus not a toasted head, yeast considerations. We've talked about surly aging. They talk about that, whether to stir the lees, which they call batonnage, the time on the lees, and the difference that that makes in the wine styles, and even decisions on halting malolactic fermentation, and all the different things that come into play. And then they had 4 styles recommending different phases, if you will, or different decision outcomes for the winemaker. And it was so nicely done with the 4 samples. I wasn't overwhelmed by the number of glasses in front of me, and I could just focus on these 4 styles and the Chardonnay grape. And it was a really nice way to start the day. I think that was the last day, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, that sounds like a good one.
It was a really nice presentation. I really think if you're into winemaking and you're doing that part of your studies, I didn't expect it to be as educational as it was. That was one of my favorites. Do you want to share one of yours?
Yeah. One of the ones that also on the last day that I really liked was the sustainable wine growing beyond bugs and cow horns. David Glancy, Master Sommelier, he is so funny and so charismatic. He's such a great educator. And he tag teamed with Allison Jordan, the executive director of the California Sustainable Wine Growing Alliance and VP of Environmental Affairs for Wine Institute. So the two of them really kind of gave this presentation with really good slides. I liked how they kind of condensed a lot of the information and used some pictographs to help explain the differences between sustainable, organic, biodynamic, some of those other terms. But they also showcased some extraordinarily well-made wines that have all won sustainable wine growing awards. And so they were all California. I'm not the only one who's surprised when there will be an award given to a winery that it never says anything on the label about their sustainable practices or, but they do that because they care. Just a little factoid here. If you're wondering, okay, what does sustainable really mean when it comes to wine growing? And there was 4 points that they mentioned: producing high quality grapes and wine, protecting the environment, being a good neighbor and employer, and maintaining a thriving long-term business. But they made it even easier by doing this like Venn diagram with the 3 E's. E for environmentally sound, E for economically feasible, and E for socially equitable. And I thought some of their material was just really solid. And I took a lot of photos and notes. So I thought that was really good. But I was totally entertained, too, because David is hilarious.
Again, that's another one of those issues that you might end up having to write a paper on, just define sustainable wine growing and to distinguish that between biodynamic, which is where you get into your cow horns and trolls and fairies and leaf days and all that. So, and David Glancy, I have to say, I finally took my first seminar with him last year. I mean, he's a great dude, but he's like the educator that one can only aspire to be, because he's got that entertaining quality, but he's super smart on everything. He's quick as a whip. And if anyone has ever fallen asleep in one of his classes, I want to know who the hell they are, because
that's impossible.
That dude is awesome. It's like, I could only just aspire to give that kind of presentation and value to the material. And so that had to be awesome. And he did one on Greek wines too. I think.
I think so, but I didn't make it to that one.
No.
There were so many good competing tracks.
It's a common theme, listeners, and those of you who were there, which there's quite a few of you apparently, you guys know you can't decide. You can't get to them all as much as you would like to. But we were both, Steph, in the Shochu seminar with Toshio.
That was, right. And we sat next to each other. It may have been the only seminar where we actually were in it together, sitting together.
I know. And this was, I would say this is one of the more memorable ones. And for some reason, the spirit ones always end up at the top of my list, in the non-tasting ones as well. But this one was so surprising to me. So Toshio, I actually invaded his table in New Orleans at dinner. So that's where I met him at the 2015 conference. And he was sitting there and we crashed his table because we didn't want to be close to the speakers, at the gala and have our eardrums blown out. And we chatted with him, and he's the owner of the Sake School of America. And he's America's only sake master. And he's
like a rock star.
He's a huge rock star. And I'm going to put this picture in I took of him that has him in between the glasses. You can see him through the glasses. But yet he's still presenting.
I saw that picture. It's cool.
I love this picture of him because it just totally sums up what we were doing. And he did some nice hefty pours of sochu for us to check out. And I was so blown away by the differences in styles. I mean, we've talked about soju on this show before. That is the Korean spirit. We talked briefly about it. Shochu's different because most of the focus is quality instead of mass quantity. And what's really interesting, and here come the factoids, where there are appellations, 4 of them to be specific, and I'm not going to read them for you, but the process was also interesting. He went into the process of distillation of sake via the single distillation pot still process that they use, and stuff that I never thought about was atmospheric versus vacuum pressure.
Yeah, that was so cool. I was like, I had no idea.
Well, yeah, because think about it. We live at high altitude. I live at 60-35. So the boiling point is, takes longer for the water to boil. So the boiling point's a bit higher. And if you have a lower boiling point with vacuum pressure, you can preserve the aromas. And so he talked about that. He talked about the different types of koji, or the mold that they use. And there are 3 that they primarily focus on. And then the base ingredients. There are different strains of rice. There is barley, sweet potato, brown sugar, buckwheat, and they all just smelled differently. They tasted different. They felt different in the mouth. Some of them, that buckwheat one.
Yeah, that was crazy, huh?
That was some heavy duty, long finish. Might as well get me some, and I'm thinking like tonkatsu, some kind of like fried pork cutlet dish in a restaurant. And I would totally put that with a tonkatsu dish. I believe that's what that is. Or a dumpling or something with, a lot of meat in it. And I was just so surprised how some were so delicate and some were so full bodied and crazy rich. And yet they're all clear.
Yeah. And if you weren't drinking them all side by side, it would be so hard to really understand everything he was explaining to us in, an hour and 15 minutes? I mean, I could have enjoyed a full day seminar, like a 6 or 8 hour seminar on Sochu, because I find it so fascinating, and there's so many details, like you're saying. I mean, you talk about matrix and things like that. I mean, it's like, okay, well, which kind of koji, which kind of base ingredient, from which appellation, and then you get this very specific experience in the glass. So it was pretty cool. And the Thai rice sochu, because we had 6, I think, and the one that was the Thai rice from Okinawa was my favorite. And it might be maybe one of the ones he said was really popular in Japan, but I could see why. And you just have it with some water and just dilute it down. And he was saying that that's what he likes to drink at home, is sochu with water.
I think the Kuradashi Genshu, I have the sheet in front of me with notes all over it. That was the sweet potato one.
Yeah.
I like that one. And I like the one made with brown sugar as well, Kagoshima. I really loved to be able to taste the difference between all those things, because I would have never, if you'd have poured that to me in a blind spirit tasting, I'd have been like, what? Whatever. I don't know what this is. It was so educational. He's such a good educator too.
He really is. And I think I liked he only had one handout, but I thought it was perfect. His slides were excellent. I would easily sign up to take a class from him, somewhere else. Like if he was doing a weekend master class or something. I mean, I would recommend anybody taking his classes.
Well, fingers crossed, because we chatted with him. And so later on this year, we might be hearing from him directly. So that would be a really treat if we can. He's just so busy, but he did express interest. And so we're excited to hopefully line up some dates where we can get him to come chat with you guys.
Yeah. Totally. Well, we should move on because there's a couple other things that we both were in the audience or in the seminar and enjoyed. And one of them was Jordan Cowie's Winefulness seminar. We had him back on the show. I don't remember the episode number, but loved having Jordan explain to us what winefulness is. And I was so impressed that he had 75 people signed up for that class. What is that telling everybody? I think that really is telling. One of my biggest takeaways was that whole stop judging the wine, right?
Yeah. And, I went through the rest of the conference with that. The first thing we do is we sniff and we put the glass right to our lips.
Yeah.
I hardly spent any time with that wine before my lips were on the glass. And I was just like, wow. So when we were doing those, especially those blind tasting things with Eric Hemmer, I was just kind of like, you know what? Let's be a little bit more mindful, be a little more mindful of what's in this glass. And really, it's a skill that when I go into panic mode before blind tastings, when everything in the glass smells the same.
Yeah.
It's like you got 4 glasses in front of you or 12 or whatever the hell. And you're like, yeah, I don't smell anything. They all smell alike. Let's start with the way they look. Let's just take a step back. Let's talk about looking at the wine. Let's look at how it swirls in the glass. Look at all those things that you learn and you forget about. And I think being wineful or mindful when you're tasting kind of brings you back into that Zen place that allows you to really zone in and kind of be there with the wine and get a feeling for what you're having. And so you're not judging it. You're just trying to introduce yourself and have it introduce itself back to you and get to know it. And by then you can probably win that blind tasting battle that you're having with your mind there.
Yeah. I mean, being present and non-judgmental is just incredible when you can use your wine to do that. Is almost a meditative type of experience. And I like how Jordan says, if you can't figure out a way to make time for meditation in your life, but you already have wine on a regular basis, maybe every time you see a wine glass in front of you, it's a cue to just kind of slow down, be aware, notice what's going on kind of thing. And one of the things he said, I have a quote here, are you the master of your mind or is your mind mastering you? And I just thought that was pretty profound. I don't want to get too deep into this, but anyway, I just loved it. I thought he did an excellent job.
That was deep stuff.
I know, it's right. It's so deep. It's so deep. Let's go get on to something else. How about how the whole conference launched off with that keynote speaker?
Eduardo Chadwick from Chile. Wow, Steph. I took notes. I actually handwrote most of the notes I was taking. If I wasn't scribbling on a handout, I was writing on my iPad in the pages and putting pictures in with the maps and everything. This one I actually took physical notes. I whipped out the notebook and was taking physical notes on the world of fine wine and the future of it. But he gave me an aspect of Chile that I was not aware of.
Me either.
I didn't know he was Decanter Man of the Year for 2018. How did I not know this? I read Decanter.
I know. I felt like I was living under a rock because I was like, now I can't stop thinking about Chilean wine and, trying to understand it more and maybe get my hands on some of these special bottles. But Eduardo has really proven to the world that Chile can produce fine wines that rival the best in the world. You've got to check out the Berlin Tasting World Tour. We've already posted it on our Facebook, but there'll be links of the documentary that, he, for 10 years, he went all around the world doing basically like a Judgment of Paris kind of taste off.
Right. It's kind of where the U.S. was 40 years ago when people were doubting what our wines and the quality of them, that they could rival the finest wines in the world. He went through the same thing decades later, trying to convince the world that, hey, we make some pretty good juice, and I'll bet blind you would figure that out. And I think it was the Judgment of Berlin, I think is what he called it, or something like that, the Berlin tasting. So we'll go ahead and link that documentary up. But there was just too much to mention. I loved Sharon's presentation on the Italian wines. I loved the whiskey one that Ben did. That was really awesome. Ben's on the staff.
You were telling me about that. Totally.
Yeah, and I blame them for my recent Costco purchase of the Whistle Pig Old World cask finish that is now sitting in my dining room. So thanks, Ben.
Well, and Val, you had an extraordinary seminar too, teaching, and people were relieved that there was no wine and it was just really great information. That was refreshing. The last day.
Thank you.
Yes. So that was a very good seminar. And I mean, I loved also the Corsica seminar. There was just, and then David, one of our patrons, he led a seminar on decanting versus aerating, which I thought was really kind of cool. I mean, I took some notes and had some takeaways from that too. So we'd have to have probably 5 episodes to cover everything from conference, but we just wanted to give you a little bit of a summary. And we have a Wino radar, of course.
We do.
Save the date, guys, for next year's conference. Let it loose, Val.
14 to 16 August 2019. We are going back to the Mayflower Hotel in Washington, D.C. That was a really good venue. I think the rooms were nice. The hotel was nice, and the location was food friendly and fun. So all my DC friends, we'll be back next year. So I hope to see some of you guys again.
And speaking of hotels, I do want to give a shout out to the hotel, Woodcliff Hotel and Spa. They did such a great job. I thought the service was so good. Everybody I talked to, they were more than helpful. Everybody went beyond what they needed to do. I thought the food was good. And so I thought that was really great. But obviously, the Society of Wine Educators staff, that it's just amazing what they pull off.
Yeah, they bust tail every year to make this happen. They turn the rooms. I don't think people realize that when you're between sessions, you only get 30 minutes. And if you've just had a session with 75 or more people, like in that big tent, and you've got 12 glasses that you've got to take off the table and dump, because some of y'all don't dump your glasses on the way out the door, which makes me bat crap crazy. But they got to dump these glasses, put these glasses in these bins, and they got to roll them out of the room, and then they got to replace all the mats, clean everything up, and put the glasses back out. That is no easy task. For any of us that do professional wine tastings, that is a lot of work. So shout out to those people who take care of us and make sure there's a clean glass in front of us for every session, that the rooms are clean. They really do work hard, and we could not have the fun that we have without those volunteers. So thank you for that. And again, with the Woodcliff Hotel, everybody was so pleasant there.
Oh yeah, it was really nice. And the grounds were nice. And I would recommend anybody staying there if they're going out to Rochester or visiting the Finger Lakes. So I think it's a great place to visit. And obviously there was a wedding going on as we were leaving on Saturday. So other people think it's a great place to have special occasion events.
Was that the biggest hotel gym you've ever been in?
Oh, I loved the gym.
That gym had everything.
Yeah. And an indoor-outdoor pool and multiple rooms.
Yoga room, stretching room. They have classes, I think, on Tuesday mornings. I mean, they just have multiple, a free weight room. And it wasn't just like some hotels. They'll have a treadmill, maybe a Swiss ball if you're lucky, and a set of dumbbells. Or we have a fitness center. That was a great gym. So Steph and I, that's usually where we find each other, is in the gym in the morning. All of our listeners also, everybody that came out introduced themselves, Steph. I mean,
isn't that the best part sometimes of the conference, is when you get to meet your listeners?
I know. I named just a few here, Katie, Sharon, Alec, Mitch, but there were so many. I mean, there are probably about 200 people of you, and we're going to go ahead and name all of you right now. No, I'm kidding. We're not going to do that. But you know who you are, and we love you. And we just were so grateful that people came and hugged us and hung out with us and showed the love, and it was awesome. So thank you to our listeners that showed up. And some of you were first-time society attendees, so that was cool too.
Yeah, that is cool. Way to go. So what else? I mean, there's so many things to thank, because we had people who invited us to happy hours and kind of special meetings and things that we did, really more privately and intimately. And we want to thank everybody who creates this extraordinary experience because we had memorable conversations and, some even just touching conversations. I just got a text message from Michelle. It's just, when you really have an opportunity to be with people face to face, it changes everything. And so for any of our listeners that are, thinking about going to the conference or any conference that has to do with wine, I encourage you to do it because it's a game changer when you're in front of people. And
well, I was going to shout out to our tribe, Steph, because we formed our tribe in 2014, John and Michelle and those guys, and we host a happy hour and we get together because we only see each other really once a year. And so if you guys go to our private group, we have some photos there. Feel free to add photos because you're all making appearances in those photos. There were people who invited us to have some rare glasses of wine with them. But I think what meant the most are, like you said, the conversations, the hugs we get to have, the friendships that we form. But there was some mentoring going on there. I got to actually have, like you said, serious conversations about, decisions I'm trying to make in my career with people who've either been there or can offer some guidance, some of them being masters of wine. And the encouragement that we get from you guys, these are the things that are going to last long after the bottles are empty, long after the glasses are cleaned, or in my case, broken. And after we've gone to our respective corners of the globe, back to Hong Kong, back to Venezuela, where all you guys come from, it just means the world to us. We can't name you all, but we love you and you know who you are.
Yes.
I'm going to cry.
I know, right? I know. It's like I was getting deep with the mindfulness and now we're getting all sappy, but
sappy. Snap out of it.
Yeah. And that really kind of rounds out this conference recap. And now we really want to give some shout outs to WTSO, our show sponsor, also who is bringing this great weekly tasting glass in front of me.
They are the best sponsor ever. I just want to say, I just really love them. They're so great to work with. But beyond that, for you, they have the 100% satisfaction guarantee, no risk, and their customer service team works for you. And we love them, and so will you.
So go to your listener page at weeklytasting.com/W25 to sign up and get started. Or you can go to our webpage and click on the link that we have there for you.
That's it. We make it easy. Click. Sign up, get the emails, because I think if you're not getting the emails and you're not seeing the tweets, you're kind of missing out on some of their specials too. I'm like, what? $19 for the Baccarat or whatever it is, It's just, they announce these specials. It's like these daily specials. There's some like sick deals in there. So definitely sign up and get the emails because there's a lot more to it than I think you see on the website. So you definitely want to be signed up. And of course, use the W25 page. And you know who else we love?
Our patrons!
Yes, we do. Steph, you want to start reading them off there?
Here we go. Kicking it off is our Reserva Superiore supporter, Robin from Girls Gone Grape, and our Reserva supporter, Auntie in Georgia.
And our Tenacious Tasters, Jeff E. from the award-winning We Like Drinking podcast, and definitely listen to him on One Bourbon, One Shard. Those 2 episodes were epic. And Sebastian of Sassy Italy Tours, Jen in Maryland, Dave and Lisa in Illinois. Great seminar, David, on decanting, as Steph said. We're glad we got to see you. Anne Marie in Virginia, our It's Not 5 o'clock, and We Don't Care listeners. Meg in South Dakota. Meg, just endless good times with you in New York and DC and wherever we see you. So it was so awesome just getting to hug you.
And the wine she brought, too.
The Viader, which I didn't get to taste.
You didn't taste it?
I didn't get to taste it.
Whoa.
I had sparkling and I had to run up to another thing real quick. And when I came back down, it was gone.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, I missed it, but I heard it was drinking like a champ. So Meg is one of the most generous people you're ever going to meet. And then Clay in Arizona, who we're going to hear from in a couple weeks.
Yep. And in California, John, Andrew, Azwani, and Val.
We got to hang out with John and Andrew in New York as well, but we also have 2 new patrons this week, guys. Crazy. Who's the first one, Steph?
Kristen from California. Like we said, Kristen, we mentioned her a little while back because she put a fun Instagram picture out there and was thanking us. But she says, thanks for being so awesome and doing what you do. I grew up in Niwot, Colorado, which has been mentioned in an old episode. Factoid and answered question. I grew for Val. The town was named after a Native American chief, and lore says that it means left hand. It's the reason Left Hand Brewing got its name. Eventually moved to Fort Collins and loved to hear Steph mention all of my old haunts like Supermarket Liquors and Ace Gillettes. My husband and I fell in love with beer while living in the Fort Collins area. We moved to Roseville, California 3 years ago, which is when I started to become interested in wine. It wasn't until about a year ago, though, that I really got into it. Wine tasting is now one of my favorite hobbies, and my favorite regions to visit are Amador, Lodi, and Clarksburg. I'm an accountant, and listening to your podcast at work all day keeps the drudgery of emails and spreadsheets from becoming too much to handle. It's also opened my eyes to just how big the wine world is and how much there is to explore. I've got a long way to go on the hashtag W25 challenge, that's for sure.
Wow. You know what, Kristen? Roseville, Sacramento area is kind of mild stomping grounds. So I'm loving that you're there. I actually watched that mall being built and could not wait to get into there. So loved Roseville. I almost retired there until I moved to Colorado. So I'm glad you're out there and you're so close to Amador County. And it's a beautiful part of Northern California that I'm a little jealous. I'm a little jealous that you're there. So good on you. And thank you for your support.
And you know what? Let's go back for just a second here, because John should get a big shout out for hosting a wonderful happy hour for us.
Always does. He's so sweet.
He's so sweet. He even had a Wine25 card in the happy hour room just to kind of show off his support. And then Andrew, who was our millennial in an episode way back when, he did say, all we need to tell him is when we want him to come back on, and he's available. He'll make himself available. So if you're ready for another millennial moment, it'll be coming.
Absolutely. And we didn't mention our other brand new It's Not 5 o'clock and We Don't Care listener, and that is Sarah in North Carolina. And so the next week's blog, we hope to have some profiles on both of these fine ladies. But we also have to shout out to Sean in Ohio, who we finally got to meet in person.
Yeah.
So that was a treat.
That was cool.
Ashley in North Carolina. I was hoping to see Ashley there.
I know. Maybe some other time.
Yeah, but we did see Kathy in Tennessee. Always big hugs for Kathy and her husband, Mark. So it was great seeing him for the brief moment before we all busted out of town. In Illinois, Steve and Renee. I get to hang out with Renee on one of the tours, and so that was fun. Colorado, we have Chris, Janet, and Diane. Kathy in Georgia, and Mary Lou in Pennsylvania. Chantel in Ontario, Canada.
And our tastemaker listeners, David in Scotland, Carol and Tony in Kentucky. It was so great to see you guys. Karen in California, Chip and Katie in Pennsylvania, Serena in New York, and Annie in Colorado. And Danielle.
I love Danielle Incognito. But you can go to our Patreon page for details. Patreon.com/wine-to-5podcast on how to be entered into our monthly drawing, exclusive content, and swag.
And between our weekly episodes, you can find goodies on our website or find us on the social spaces at Wine25.
I'm exhausted.
So until next week.
Cheers.
Thank you for listening to the Wine-to-5 podcast. Be sure to check us out at Facebook/WineTWO5 and tune in next week for more fun and useful sip tips.